What's up guys, Brennan here, back with another video. Today I'm doing a highly requested part 2 piano tutorial for the song Ylang Ylang by FKJ. I'm really excited to do this one. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I do piano tutorials, covers, original songs, and if you subscribe, you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Okay, let's get right into it. Now I'm going to play an example of what you're going to learn in today's video. I will say that before I start playing and you hear it and you go, oh wow, that's really hard, I don't think I can learn this, just know that it's going to sound very difficult to play. If you're a beginner, as long as you break it down nice and slow and practice it a bunch, you'll be able to get it down. Here we go. Okay, so just follow along with me here. If you have any questions at all, you can definitely let me know down in the comment section below. But we're going to start with the right hand part, then the left hand for the first section, and put both together. So in the right hand, you're going to be playing up here. Your thumb is going to start on C. So it's going to go like this. I'm going to play it on its own. So you're hitting C, and then you go C, G. Okay? So try that with me. It's going to kind of like flick from the C to the G. So it's C, C, G. Then you go. Okay? That's a little tricky. So it's going to go C, cross over to G sharp with your pointer finger. Then you go third finger on B flat. And then you go C, D sharp, and then you do a roll. From C, D sharp, G. So let's go over this again from the top. Then you go. Okay, so all together. One more time. Do it with me. Okay? And in the left hand, you're going to have your pinky here on F. And then you go C and D sharp. 1, 2, 3. Okay? Then you go F again. And then you do these 3 times. So that's D sharp and G. Okay, so F, 1, 2, together. So I'm going to play it together and then we're going to break down how to learn it. Here we go. I'm going to do it nice and slow. Okay? So you're going to start same time, C in your right hand, F in your left hand. And it's going to go. And then on the second one out of the three is when you roll to G. So it's going to be like this. Try that with me. Then you go, and when you go to cross over to this one, you need to hit the F again. It's a little bit tricky to get the timing on this song, okay? Let's go over it again. Right when you cross to this black one, you need to go back to the F. This timing here is a little hard to slow it down. Remember, you have to hit it 3 times. So the third one, you play when you have no more keys left in the right hand. That'll help you with the timing. So it's... So let's try both together. Then you go in the right hand. So you go F, B, C, G, F, F. So all together that right hand is... Okay, one more time. Okay, then you do a little walk down jazzy part where it's... Okay, so that is going to be pinky on D and your middle finger on B flat. Then your thumb goes to G, cross over to D sharp. So that's... And then lastly, you hit these two, which is B flat and C sharp. So that's a little bit tricky because you have to do it really fast, like... So it's going to take a lot of practice. But I play these two. This is my third finger, this is my pinky, and I go thumb, crossover, these two. Okay, so all together, practice the right hand. Then in the left hand, after you do this one, this one, then you go B, and then you go up to this one that you were just playing, which is D sharp and G. Okay, then you move your middle finger down one, you keep the thumb where it is. So that's D and G. And then you move your thumb down to F and you keep your middle finger where it was. A little tricky, so it's... Okay, try that all together. B. And then it's C. Then you go F and B flat together. And then you just move your middle finger down to E and you do E and B flat together. Okay? A little tricky. Let's put both hands together because sometimes that can make it easier. Okay, so we already learned this part. Same time. Then you go. So you go F on its own, and then you play both B's at the same time. And then you go. It's a little bit bit tricky, so let's go over it again. F. Then you go B. One more time. I'll do it even slower. And then you go. So F's on its own, and then the second F is when you play C. And then these walk downs are actually together, so it's like this. That's a little bit tricky, but all you're doing is moving one finger in the left hand, so it's. And then when you go to play these two is when you move the finger. So that's. I know I'm going fast here just because we have a lot to cover in this second part of the song. So if you do need help, just drop a comment down below and I can always message you on Instagram. You can DM me on Instagram if you need help. But just for the sake of the length of this video, we're going to move on to the next part here. The next part, which I'm going to play on its own, is this. Okay, so it goes like this. Okay, so that's C, E, E, D, E, A, E. So that's, play it with me. And then you jump all the way from the D down here up to the D up here. Okay, one more time. Okay, and then in the left hand, you're going to go. Okay, so you're going back and forth between F and C and E. Then you go F, C, D, F, C, E, F, C, D. So let's put both hands together here. This is very similar to some of the stuff we were doing in part one. It's kind of the same rhythm, but just different keys. So it's like this. C on its own. And when you go to E is when you come in on the left hand. Okay, that's a little tricky, so let's go over it a few times. So it's C on its own, and then you go same time, same time, same time. Jump up here. So you need to be playing this high D when you're on the last set of these two, okay? One more time. This little cool walk up where you're like, okay, so that's your pinky and thumb go down to B flat, okay, and then your right hand does these three keys first, which is G sharp, C, F, okay, so it's. Okay, then your right hand needs to cross over and go G, C, F. Okay, so let's try that together. These three, remember, G sharp, C, F, G, C, F. Then you go G, C, F, See a pattern here? G, C, G, F. So you're kind of just going on the G, C, F after this first part, so it's, there you go. This is going to take quite a bit of practice because you're playing a lot of keys at once. Let's go over that one more time. B flats together. Right hand starts with G sharp, C, F. Left hand crosses over to G, C, F, G, C, F, G, C, G, F. Feel free to pause that video and practice this a bunch before you move on to my next part, okay? All right, so then after you do that, you do a cool little jazzy walk down where it's like, so the right hand is, so that's D, C, B flat, A, G, F. So it's, and then you do these two together, which is G sharp and C. So it's, so the fingering I do for that is pinky up here, and I play the next one with my pointer finger, so that then my pinky and my third finger can play the two at the same time. So it's, so just watch my hands if you need help there. But it goes pretty fast. It's like, and then in the left hand, you have your pinky on F and your middle finger on B flat. So it's, then you move your middle finger down to A, and then you move it down one more to G sharp, keeping F each time. So it's, okay, let's put both parts together. Here we go. So you're going to start off playing at the same time. So it's going to be, then when you go to A, you need to move down to A here. And then these are at the same time. So that's move, move. One more time. We're learning a lot of keys at once. So like I said, feel free to do this video in sections, practice this section for a week or two, then come back to the video, do the next section. I am going to leave the timestamps down in the comments below, so you can always refer back to it. But yeah, just take your time and don't be too hard on yourself, because I had to practice this for like 2 weeks before I was able to actually be able to play it correctly and not mess up. So I just know that it's going to take some time because this is a very jazzy song and you're learning a lot at once. So then after you do that, we're going to visit a familiar part that we were doing in part 1, which is this. Remember that? But you had a little jazzy spin to it. Left hand stays exactly the same, which is awesome. So you don't alter this at all. The right hand, you add a little bit of jazziness to it. So we're going to start with the left hand. First, you have your pinky here on F sharp, and then you play these three: B flat, C sharp, F. Then you go back to F sharp, and you just move the thumb down to D sharp. Remember? So it's F sharp, these three, F sharp, move the thumb, F sharp, these three, F sharp, move the thumb. Okay? Then you go C sharp, these three, which is F, G sharp, and C. C sharp, move the thumb down to B flat. Let's try and memorize this pattern. Just your thumb is moving. top. Move the thumb. Move the thumb down to C sharp. You kind of got to practice this to where it's on automatic because you're going to be doing a lot in the right hand. So the more you practice the left hand, your body just kind of does it without you thinking about it, and then you can focus on the right hand. So here we go on the right hand. Okay, so that's F, F, D sharp, F, B flat, F, E, D sharp. And then you walk back up. D sharp, E, F. Okay, so I'm going to do it without talking so you can just watch my hands. There you go. So that's C, C, B flat. And then this is where you add a little jazziness, and this is going to take some practice, but you go. Okay, yeah, pretty complicated, but it goes like this. Then you wait a second and you go. And then this you hit 3 times. And the last time you do kind of like a bunch of notes right after each other. I know it sounds confusing, but this is the best way to memorize it. So it's, then you go. And then on the 3rd time you go. So that's 3rd time you go F, C, B flat, G sharp, F. So try that. And then you go. So that's D sharp, F, G sharp. So all together, I know this is tricky. Like I said, you're going to have to practice this part a little bit, but it's. Third time. So it's. So it's F, C, B flat, G sharp, F. Then you jump all the way up to D sharp. So again, play it over and over. That's the best way to get it. Again. Let's put both parts together. One more time. So let's go ahead and put both hands together because this is a little bit tricky, this part here. So starting on our first one, right? So we go. Then you go. Just like we learned in part 1, okay? And then you go. Then this is where you start a lot of notes. This is really tricky, okay? I'm going to try and play it as slow as I humanly can. Here we go. Switch. Let's go over it again. next part is the same in the left hand as what we learned, but then the right hand changes. So it's okay. So this part's really tricky. It took me a while to get this thing down. So it's F, F, B flat, D sharp. So it's, then you go. So that's F, G sharp, F, then you go B flat, E, D sharp. So all together. Okay, then you go. So this part's a little bit of like an improv. And what I mean by improv is you kind of are just playing a bunch of the notes at the same time and making them up as you go. So a good rule for this, which we're going to get into a little bit later in the song, is you want to only play these 5 keys: C, B flat, G sharp, F, D sharp. So it's, and you can play any combination. So see how that's kind of jazzy? Just doing it from top to bottom. So try that. And then it goes after you do that walk down, and you go. So that's C. I know this is a little tricky, but when we put both hands together, it's going to get a little bit easier. So let's just go over this again. Then you pause and you go. So now let's put both hands together. Now remember, the left hand's the same as we already learned. So it's going to be like this. Switch. Then you go. And right when you move to the F is when you change to the C sharp. Okay, so it's a little bit tricky timing. So let's go over it again. One more time. And then when you go to do the next one in the left hand is when you do that whole walk down. So this timing is a little bit crazy. That's why it took me a while to get down. So then when you do the walk down, it's going to be like this. So I'm going to play it at full speed and you can watch how I do it, because this is kind of the only way I'm able to teach it. Unfortunately, this is a really hard part to try and teach. So just bear with me, guys. Here we go. Then you need to immediately start on the walk down. So I go. Okay, so it's. So I'm going to just play it at full speed. really practice that. So it's so then it's kind of the same thing after that, except that instead of playing it down here, you jump up higher on the piano. So then it's same thing in the left hand, and you just go like this. These two together. So before you were just playing this on its own, but now you do B flat and D sharp. Everything else is the same. Now at this point in the song, he does some more improvisation. And what that means is he's playing something called a scale. And what a scale is it's a progression up or down. So the scale that he's doing is 5 keys, okay? So it's C, B flat, G sharp, F, D sharp. So it's, but you can play that any combination of ways. You can go down really quick, you can go up, or you can go between 2. But it's those 5 keys only, all up and down the piano. So I'm going to show you when he's doing those little runs, when it's like, so you're only playing those 5 keys. So I'm going to show you a few tricks with those that you can do. So you can go up the piano, obviously doing the 5. You can go. You can go down the piano. Or you can do little rolls, which is what he does a lot in the song, where you like roll on 3 of them. It doesn't matter, any combination, any rhythm, you can do whatever you want as long as it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 keys, okay? So I encourage you to pause the video and practice this. Remember, you're only allowed to hit these 5, but you can do it all up and down the piano like this. And you're doing what's called improvising. So towards the end of the song, he keeps the left hand the same. Now that's very important. You do not alter the rhythm of the left hand. You don't change anything about the left hand. It's kind of picture your left hand like the drummer, and it's keeping beat. And then your right hand can kind of just have a party and just do whatever it wants. But the left hand stays the same. So just to go over the left hand, it's... Switch. Put some improv in here. I'm not changing the left hand at all, but I'm just kind of doing whatever I want in the right hand and using the left hand kind of as like a guide to stay in beat, okay? So that's very important. I encourage you to mess around more with improvising because that's what FKJ does in the song, is he's like kind of doing this little jazzy things. And as long as you're hitting those 5 keys over and over, up and down the piano, you're all set. You can do whatever you want, as long as you keep the left hand the same. So in the original song, what he does is what I was just teaching you, this part here. does that for a little bit, and then he plays a part that we already learned in part 2. So then after the improvising, it goes back to this part that we already learned. Remember this? Exactly the same. And then this part changes. So he does this little thing where it's like, so all you're doing is it's the same keys just like the earlier part. So in the left hand, but in the right hand, it's, then you move one key. Okay, so let's try that. So that's E, C, A, D, C, A. So it's, then you go. So that's just like we learned earlier. You're just adding in that. So let's go over that again. So it's, then you go. High D. Okay? Then this next part is already what we learned, where you go down to these and you go. Remember? And you do the whole. All the same. Next part, all the same of what we learned. Okay, we're almost done here. And then you go to the original formation. You just play it high up on the piano. So then it's what we already learned. And then at this point, he does more improvisation. So it's like this. And then you switch. And then you kind of fade it out and end it. Okay, so I know we went over a lot in this video, and this is a very tricky song, but you learn so much in it. You learn improv, you learn some jazzy parts, and just know that if you do have trouble, I could definitely try and help, because this song took me a long time to learn myself, like forever. That's why it took me so long to get you guys a part 2, because I could not get this song down. So don't be too hard on yourself, because the more I practiced it, like I practiced it repeatedly, hours, and then it got easier. So definitely get your practice time in on this. And like I said, if you have questions, you can let me know in the comments below. So now that we've learned all the parts, I'm going to go ahead and do my run through again, okay? So you can just see how this whole thing ties together, okay? So I'm going to try and slow it down from the original song, just so you can watch my hands and use this almost as like a reference point, okay? So here we go. All right, guys, good job on learning this song. Definitely don't forget to subscribe to my channel. It helps me out a ton, and it also helps you out because then you don't miss out on any of my future videos. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. And like I said, if you need any help at all, definitely let me know down in the comments section below. All right, I'll see you guys next time.